or maybe a bus or any other product, it will certainly have a certain life for a number of years. And as and when we use that more, the product will tend to have a bit of depreciating value with each passing year. That means if you are using any car or maybe any laptop or any other product, it will tend to have less value with each passing year. So in accountancy, depreciation basically refers to the two aspects of the same concept. That is the actual decrease of the fair value of an asset, such as decrease in the value of factory equipment each year as and when it is used. And second is the allocation in accounting statements of the original cost of the assets to periods in which the assets are used in a similar manner. Depreciation is thus the decrease in the value of the asset and the method used to evaluate, reallocate it, or evaluate it, or basically write down it. Further, it is nothing but as and when we do business, the products or the assets that we use, they tend to depreciate with the time, and this particular depreciation has to be taken care of whenever we are doing any accounting practice. The decrease in the value of the asset affects the balance sheet of the business or entity. The method of depreciating the asset accounting wise affects the net income. Therefore, the income statement that they report, generally the cost is allocated as the depreciation expense among the period in which the asset is expected to be used. So I'll give you a very brief snapshot of depreciation. Now, to make the depreciation statement in the MS Excel, we are going to use five main functions that Excel provides, right? And these five main functions have been explained in a very easy manner in the MS Excel. So let me just start the MS Excel, and let me share my screen, and I've written the topic over here as five functions to be used here with respect to this. Let me just clear that. So you can see the five functions which are written over here. Let me just bold the whole sheet, and let me also increase the font size. Right. So as you can see, the five functions that we are going to use in today's class are straight line function, that is SLN, sum of years digit, that is SYD, declining balance, that is DB, double declining balance, that is DDB, and variable declining balance, that is VDB. But before I start using these functions, I have to give some parameters like the salvage amount, the cost of the product, and the life or the duration of the period. So the cost of, I say, any product which I have taken over here is, say, let me just write it over here. So the first parameter which I write over here is cost of the product. Say it is 30,000. The salvage value, I take it as 3,000, and the life or duration or the period of this particular product is basically taken as, say, 15 years. Right? Now I'm going to write a statement using these functions. So let me make a table. The very first component is the period, which will be starting from 1 to 15. Let me just write that, and let me drag these values over here like this. I have 13, 14, and 15. Right? And next parameter will be all about the functions that we are going to use for this depreciation schedule. Let me just write that one by one, and then we'll be doing calculation. So the very function, as we can see over here, is given as straight line function. Let me write all in one go, and then I'll explain one by one. Then is SYD, DB, DDB, and VDB. Let me bold them. SLN, as you can see, it is nothing but the straight line function. So if I just write that, You will see the format coming up over here using three parameters, that is cost, salvage, and the life of that particular product. So the cost of the particular product is 30,000 over here, comma, salvage is 3,000 and life is 15 years, and then I close the bracket. So I get this amount as 1800 as the amount under the SLN function. Next I have is the SYD function, which is another function that we use in the generation of depreciation schedule. Let me just give you a line about SLN function as well, so that we are pretty clear about what we are doing in the present scenario. So SLN, that is straight line function, is nothing but it is basically a function to calculate the depreciating value for individual year. So this will perform the function of calculating the depreciating value by using the cost, salvage, and the life period, which is given in the Excel sheet. If I just use the same function, it has given me this amount as 1800. In a similar manner, I have SYD. So let me just write the function SYD bracket, and I will have the same parameters as cost, salvage, life, and the period. So cost is given as 30,000, life is given as 15 years, salvage is given as 3,000, and period is given as, which will change because in the first period it will be 1, for the second period it will be 2, and so on. So let me just write that. So cost is 30,000, comma, 3,000, comma, 15, and then I write A11, which is the period. Right? So I have got this amount as $3,375 for sum of years digit. Let me just tell you a brief about this particular function. So this particular function is going to calculate the results in a sum of the years of 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, which is nothing but 55 in case of 10 years. But in case of 15 years, this will give you the other number, right? So let me just write something more. Wait. Next function which I have over here is DB, which is declining balance. And again, this function will be using the same parameters, cost, salvage, life, and A9, that is the period. So let me write that. So I say DB. DB, as you can see on the screen also, it is written over here, declining balance. So I say equal to DB bracket. I say cost, which is 30,000, comma, 3,000, comma, life, and then you have the next parameter as A11, and then I close the bracket over here. So I've got this amount as 4,260 as DB. Next we have DDB, which is double declining balance. That is also very simple. And that way, I think this particular concept is very simple to calculate in MS Excel. Reason being, in the Excel functions, we are using more or less the same values which we have listed initially in the Excel sheet. So DDB will actually calculate the values. It will actually result in a rate of, 1 by 10. In our case, we have taken 1 by 15 because this function is called as double declining balance. So we double this rate by some calculation. So DDB function has a fifth optional argument. We can use this argument to use the different factor also. So let me just complete that. So DDB is nothing but, let me just correct the DB also. In case of DB, that is declining balance. Yes. Let me go back to this. So I say equal to DDB bracket. I say cost, comma, salvage, comma, life, and then I have the period cell which I have to give as A11. Then I close the bracket and I will get this particular amount over here. We can very clearly see that both the functions db and ddb were actually having the same arguments, but we are getting some other answers for both the cases. That is because the calculation differs in both the functions. The next function that we're going to use in this case is VDB, which is variable declining balance. That is also very simple. I will simply say VDB bracket. So first is cost, comma, salvage, comma, life, comma, and now there will be some change in the arguments. After the life argument, I'm going to write something more with respect to the time period. And in this case, I'm going to mention the same cell where I'm having the period, which is A11. So I will write A11 minus 1, comma, A11 and close the bracket. Right? It has given me, okay, let me just write that. So this has given me $4,000 as the answer. Now for calculating all these values for the remaining periods, that is 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, I'm going to simply drag down these cells in one go.